Thanks, Andy.
Hi, I'm sorry, when I screen share, everything moves around. I'm like, okay.
I'm sure. Captions working. You got that up.
Yep.
Good.
So I decided, and then we're already on YouTube as well. So I just decided I'm going to get everything done. So all I have to push is go.
There you go.
Hello, panelist.
Hello.
Yeah. Anybody hear Lou Otten died today?
Who?
Lou Otten. You know who he was? He was the inventor of the cassette tape. Still
I
trivia.
always learn something new from you, Dr. Whitehead.
Well, being a music buff, you know. He was 94.
Wow.
Wait, what did we learn? All I caught was the very end.
Lou Otten passed away today. He was the inventor of the cassette tape.
Random. Okay, thanks for that.
I'm good for random trivia.
So how nice did it feel to maybe I came home to windows open all throughout the house. It was like, oh, this is awesome. Enjoy it while we've got it, huh?
gonna say we live in PA. It's a teaser.
It was a good tease.
Sorry.
All right. Just click record. We just hit 7 o'clock, so I think we'll get started. Welcome everyone to another in our series of parent chats with the superintendent. Tonight we have with us Dr. Alan Fagley, our superintendent of schools, Dr. Leroy Whitehead, our assistant superintendent of schools, Dr. Jessica Kilmetz, our director of curriculum, Ms. Blake Emanuel, our board president, and I'm Sandy Kloss. I'm the Communications and Community Relations Coordinator for the district. So if you've been with us before, you know the format. We have a short presentation that we're going to go through with lots and lots of information in it. So hopefully a lot of the questions you may already have are already going to be answered in the presentation, but we do invite you to ask additional questions. I know some of you submitted them on the form already, and we're going to try and incorporate those into our presentation and into what we're in our responses tonight. But please feel free to add additional ones into the question and answer that should be either at the top or the bottom of your page. We are going to ask if you would please just give us your name when you are posting a question in there. That would be very appreciated. And we will go through them. We will answer as many as we can. So what we'll do is Dr. Fagley is going to go through the presentation, and the rest of us are going to keep an eye on what's coming in the Q&A, and we will try and insert them at appropriate times. We'll get through as many as we can. The timing for this is from 7 to 8. So we do try and be very respectful of your time, and we will try and end as close to 8 as we possibly can. So with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dr. Fagley.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Claus. So our agenda for this evening, well, I guess that's right. We're doing this part first. I apologize. It has been an incredible year. It's difficult to imagine that last year on this day, as I was driving home, NPR said it was 1 year to this day that they started the shutdown of the United States. So it has been a year that our world truly has turned upside down. I know I'm not telling you anything new that you don't already know because you've lived it. We've all lived in this topsy-turvy world. We've all had to find new ways of doing just about everything. As educators, we needed to adjust very, very quickly and change things that had been in place for many, many years, which meant our students and families also needed to make drastic changes as well. Thank you for making those. So let's really start with that big thank you to the faculty, the staff, administration, board, parents, community, and most importantly, the students. Thank you. Thank you for making all the switches. Thank you for sticking together. Thank you for working together. Thank you for having the growth mindset, because without that, it would have been a much, much more challenging year. Not that there weren't many challenges being faced. And it is that growth mindset that we've used over the year that has helped us get through this crazy, crazy world. We are starting to see a glimmer of hope with the vaccines becoming more available. And, you know, hopefully these will keep moving out quickly. You're hearing more and more that they're hoping for all adults who wish to be vaccinated by the end of May, which is wonderful. But what we're facing right now, and we'll continue to face, I believe up through next year, is what a circus performer who is twirling the plates and trying to keep all these plates up in the air feels. I certainly know that is how I often feel as we have the plates just circling around us. Please know that we are here to support your child as best we can, whether your child attends in person or virtually. We're going to continue to do everything we can to meet your child's educational needs, to keep them safe and support them through their emotional well-being. I know sometimes we get all caught up in the who, what, when, where, how's it going to happen? Oh, I don't know this, I don't know that. Please know I feel those feelings every day. There's oftentimes, even today, that the guidance I received as to what was taking place with vaccines changed multiple times. So in all that we're doing with our planning for the fourth marking period and beyond, please know that as a team, administrative team, as a board team, and as the faculty and staff, we are focused on what we believe is the best for the students, for your children. I know we may not always agree where we land, but please know that in the heart of every one of our decisions is your child. And with that, why don't we get started in going through all the information that we have for this evening. So we're going to go through the administrative recommendations for the fourth marking period, quickly review the Chester County Health Department guidance, look at some of the academics, activities, and athletic things that are taking place, our end of the year events, and give a preview of what the 21-22 school year is currently proposed to look like. So the administrative recommendations for the board's consideration at their March 15th meeting is that we return as a district to in-person learning with 6 foot, but no less than 3 foot physical distancing beginning Monday, March 22nd. The administrative team is also recommending to the board that as many K-12 extracurricular activities as possible resume in person on Monday, March 22nd. And the area athletics, we are recommending that the high school sports begin their practice on March 22nd and that middle school sports begin their practice on April 4th. And that during this time, they're going to be following all of the Pioneer Athletic Conference and only competing in the Pioneer Athletic Conference. This is a chart hopefully most of you have seen for multiple weeks. It is how the county is right now showing transmission levels and positivity rates and what their recommendations are at each of those levels. For many months, actually since going back, if I remember correctly, the second or third week of November, we have been in the very high area above 100. And also at the same time with greater than 10% positivity rating. During that time, it has been strongly recommended by all that we maintain 6 foot distancing and possibly even be in this virtual hybrid world. Since January, we've been going on a downward trend. And what we're seeing right now for the last 2 weeks, that we have been below 100 at the county level for incidence rates. And we've been below we've been actually in the 5 to 7% for the positivity rates. While we don't have the final figures for this week yet, they're preliminarily, I am hearing they'll probably be in the mid to high 80s for the incident rate and below 5% for the, I'm sorry, mid to high 80s for the incidence rate, and below 5% for the positivity rate. So in order to make this work well, the first and foremost thing that all guidance is giving us is that we need to have multiple layers for mitigation. The Swiss cheese model we have been using for a number of months to talk with you about, this is an enhanced Swiss cheese model because it's showing actually more of what is taking place. It shows both what they're classifying as personal responsibilities and as shared responsibilities. It begins with, if you're feeling sick, please stay home. If you're showing any of the symptoms, please stay home. It goes to masks. And in Phoenixville, we're actually recommending double masking at this time. We've been doing so for the last 6 weeks. It goes to hand hygiene. It talks about crowd control. It talks about avoiding touching your face. And then as we go into the shared responsibilities, it begins to talk about our ventilation systems, which our ventilation systems, please know that each classroom has its own ventilation system. The air in that classroom only circulates in there, and we are bringing in the maximum amount of fresh air we are allowed to from the outside. We're also allowing our faculty to open the windows to get more fresh air in on these great days. So the ventilation is taking place at a very, very high rate. And in our ventilation systems, we have put MERV 13 filters, the high level filters that are used in hospitals. It talks about quarantine and isolation. It is important that we keep following that in all of our schools. We have a quarantine and isolation location. So if a student comes down or a staff member comes down feeling sick, they go immediately into that area. We're going to immediately test them, give them an antigen test to see if they do have COVID or if they test positive. If they do test positive, they're going to be sent home right away and go into quarantine. But they have been isolated the moment that they are feeling any illness. So, but that is the last resort. If you're feeling ill in the morning, I'm going to go back, please stay home. And we say that to our staff, and we're asking the students that as well. And then the next level that they show here are vaccines. Vaccines are coming. It's great that we now have a choice of 3, and hopefully they keep rolling out. The one that they don't show here are the antigen testing that we do. So that's actually another layer of mitigation that's in between the quarantine and the isolation, because by knowing quickly what is taking place, we are able to respond quickly and then either isolate that class so that they don't go anywhere else and we get the word out, or sit there and say, don't worry, folks, it's not COVID. And that would be a great thing. Because remember, we still get sick. We're still getting colds, although the flu has been very light this year, which has been nice. Mrs. Claus? So our recommendations for the board consideration in the instructional area. First and foremost, we are recommending that all in-person and virtual students continue with the current class teacher that they have. We are not asking for any students to change as it's taking place in other locations. So your child will have the same teacher they have in that class or during the day. The virtual option, we are recommending 5 days per week, and the in-person option, we are recommending 5 days per week. It is the educational opinion, and I've had multiple conversations with faculty, staff, and administrators this week, as in past weeks, but it's the educational opinion of all the administrators, the Phoenixville Area Education Association, and the Pennsylvania Education Student Association, that students do need to return to in-person learning. As a district, and all districts, we have continued to learn from the professionals and from our own experience. I'm not going to go through all these multiple layers of safety, but these are all the layers that we currently have in place on site. I think if you close your chat box, Ms. Claus, you'll be able then to just click and start moving down. considerations also are as to why we're recommending 5 days is to looking at the need of our underrepresented students. It is the professional opinion of the administration that these students need to be in person 5 days per week. We're thankful that the board had approved that some of these students been able to be in 5 days per week, but not all have been because of distancing requirements. There are families that have the ability to keep their students virtual. Then there are other families that do not have that ability to keep their students virtual. And we're looking at that as well for our recommendation to the board. We have had multiple conversations with families that are paying for tutoring. And that's fortunate that they're able to. But that then means their children are not failing. And that's actually right now, the way we're bringing students in for those extra 2 days, or we're looking at students who are having significant difficulties. And those children are doing well. But those parents are saying, no, but we also want our child back in school. So that's another piece that we've been looking at on our decision-making process. For lunchtime, it is important that we maintain 6-foot distancing for all lunch periods. The lunchrooms have been set up from the start of this pandemic, and right now, and will continue to be set up with all students facing one direction. So everyone is facing the same direction. Everyone is at least 6 feet apart. We know we need more space, so we're going to be using gyms and our other large spaces for lunch, and which may require that the physical education classes are outside more. And that's important that we sit there and use all the spaces possible. We are in the extracurricular area. I hope you were able to listen to Mr. McAdams' presentation. If not, it has been posted on the web for what we're going to do during the extracurricular activities, because we are looking back at bringing the choirs, the orchestras, the bands, and the musicals. We are looking at having performances outside if at all possible. And if we can obtain the rights, we will broadcast all the plays and the musicals. Sports, again, we're looking at having them begin on March 22nd. They must follow all the guidance from the PIAA, the PAC, and the Chester County Health Department, and the CHOP Policy Lab.
Dr. Fegley, before you move on, regarding sports gym classes being outside to allow for that 6-foot distancing with eating, one of the questions is when there's inclement weather, what will folks do?
That's a great question. Fortunately, we'll be able to run many of the gym classes. The ones during lunchtime will probably be getting very creative, having them in the hallways and doing other things that are appropriate in those school buildings.
Thanks. And then one more, in terms of that quarantining and that those mitigation steps. So if there's a need to quarantine an entire classroom, what is done about siblings of the students within that classroom?
We will also be watching the siblings, and we'll take our guidance from the Chester County Health Department as to whether those siblings do need to quarantine or not quarantine.
Couple more. One was the question regarding the choice for when to bring students back, wondering why not to do it after spring break.
No, that's a great question, one that we've debated. There are approximately, from March 22nd on, 10 weeks left in the school year. So when we're looking at this, we're looking at it, if we keep delaying, that is another 10% of in-person instruction that we're missing. And that's a significant amount. So one of the reasons is let's come in March 22nd. As we all will have to do, we will all be getting our feet wet again. We'll all be going through new learning as we have more students coming in. That will then also give us a week to sit there and say, are there any adjustments we need to make? And then we'll be back in on April 5th, ready to go.
One more question, Drs. Whitehead and Drs. Kilmetz. This might be a great one for you regarding instruction. Specifically, if more students are coming in, how will the students who are virtual maintain and receive appropriate instruction given more student bodies physically in the classroom?
Teachers are doing a great job of that now. It is hard. We're not gonna pretend that it isn't. It is hard to manage that, and we understand that there are challenges inherent in that. However, it's so important to us that our students remain with their current teachers and not have to switch teachers. That we feel that this is a challenge that our teachers want to continue to manage, in all honesty, for this year. And as we move ahead to next year, we are thinking about having those all virtual teachers. But for this year, we think that student-teacher relationship is so important and worth preserving. And it makes this challenge one that we're willing to take on, and we think we can tackle. We know we can. We've been doing it.
I'm sorry, Dr. Kilmer. Thank
No,
you.
you're good.
I would just add really quickly, an important point is prior even to the pandemic, Dr. Fagley and I and Dr. Gomez were having conversations with our high school students and our secondary students in particular. We're moving to a one-to-one situation anyway. And obviously the pandemic changed all that. But I think it's important to realize, because there's a misconception out there that students are going to come in, be in person, but simply be on the computer the entire time. And that's simply not the case. Computers are a tool. They are a resource. And when students are in the classroom, that's what they're going to be used effectively for. And as Dr. Kilman said, and I completely agree, obviously there are challenges with providing remote and in-person learning at the same time, but many of our students are thriving in the virtual environment. And I think it's also a misconception that all students are struggling in the virtual environment, and that's simply not true.
Thank you. Another question, Dr. Whitehead, this one's definitely for you. Can you please go over the procedure when a teacher or student tests positive, under what circumstances are families notified, and then in terms of quarantining, how is that determined?
Sure. We've established isolation protocols and isolation locations that vary from building to building, obviously based on the building design. So those protocols are there. Obviously, parent will be notified immediately. We would follow all health department, Chester County Health Department protocols. Those isolation protocols really haven't changed much in some time, which is actually not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. And the communication protocols to the parent would be obviously very, very quick, and we would make recommendations. We also have now at our disposal, obviously, as Dr. Fagley mentioned, antigen testing is available for students who may be symptomatic, and if parents give permission, we can go ahead and use that. We're also moving and looking towards Q testing and having our nurses. That's in progress right now. We're working out some technology pieces to that, but we'll also have that tool ultimately available for our nurses as well.
Thank you. A couple more questions. What does mask wearing and reinforcement look like, especially with more students coming in?
Sure. I will tell you this. I have been so impressed with our students and our staff in terms of the mask wearing. I will tell you, it's just simply not an issue. It is not. We've not had big battles with mask wearing. It's the occasional. Much like years ago when the baggy jeans were popular, we had to say, "Hey, same thing with masks." Occasionally, the mask will slip down into the nose. And I was in the high school the other day. One of the administrators said, "Hey, pull your mask up," and the student immediately just pulled his mask up over his nose. And it's just simply the mask wearing enforcement really has been going very, very well. I think the students, really appreciate being in the building. Teachers appreciate being in the building, and so they really respect that.
I
And
agree.
we have plenty of masks available.
I was just going to say, we have lots of masks. So sometimes students come in with ill-fitting masks,
Yes.
and we're able to provide masks that provide a better fit for students. So if that's an issue for your child, no worries, we can help with that.
One of the questions that had reached me that goes a little bit further than that is, what if you have a student who's refusing to wear a mask? And we need to let you know, we do have some students who are not able to wear a mask, but those are few and far between. And honestly, those students are in now. So those students, we know who they are, and they are legitimately not able to wear masks due to medical conditions. Mm-hmm. If we have a student who is refusing, one of the older students is just saying, "Nope, I'm not going to wear the mask," It will be handled in a consultative way. We'll go over, ask them to wear the mask. If they continue to refuse to wear the mask, they'll be asked to go to another area for their learning. So it will be another room where they can be socially distanced by 10 or more feet. They'll sit there and they'll do their lessons on Zoom at that time. They'll be given another opportunity to go back to the classroom. If they refuse to put on the mask, they will be asked to go home and they will ask to be a virtual student. So yes, masking protocol, masking requirements are absolutely going to remain for the rest of this year. And if I were to make a prediction right now, I would predict that masks are going to be worn next year as well. We'll wait to see what the guidance is, but that is the prediction right now.
So
Sorry,
would you-
while we're on masks, what is the process for mask breaks?
Mask breaks will be given. They need to be given where students can be socially distanced, appropriately socially distanced, and are able, if it's indoors, to be quiet so that it's not a running situation. It's not a moving situation. It's sitting, doing some quiet reading, properly socially distanced at 6 foot.
I was just going to add that if you have not been wearing, if your child has been at home and not been in school, has been virtual for the most of the year and is planning to come back in the fourth marking period, you need to start maybe having them wearing a mask now, get practice. It takes a little while to get used to having one on for longer than a few minutes. So that's some advice that we had given at the beginning of the year. And I think it's important for anyone who's planning to come back for fourth marking period.
So
there's a question regarding carrying of computers and materials back and forth. Question is how will, maybe it was answered.
no, sorry, I clicked too quickly. The question was, do students need to carry the laptops back? Sorry, I'm quick. You got to answer these questions. Will students have to carry the laptops back and forth when they come in person?
It's a great question. I think some of that depends on how frequently we're in person, which we don't quite know just yet. So, if we're in 5 days at the elementary level, there would be no reason that the students would need to carry their computers back at night unless there was some extenuating circumstance that required it. In most instances, you'd be able to leave your district provided device at school at the elementary level.
Secondary may look a little different based on what the teachers may be working on, projects, etc.
Some more questions. Circling back just to the testing. I think that, so the question was, if a student or teacher tests positive, will the parents be notified? How is quarantine determined?
Yeah, so again, students obviously would be isolated and parents would be called immediately. And we would follow our protocols, contact the Chester County Department of Health. And antigen testing could be utilized or Q testing could be utilized. And then ultimately, obviously, that student would be sent home to isolate.
One of these questions I'll actually grab. So it was not the person who asked it. It was not already answered. If the current administrative recommendations are approved by the board Monday night, all students who elect to do that 5-day would come back on the 22nd. Again, that's pending board approval and as admin currently is recommending. It would not, to answer that question, it would not be phased reentry like it was this fall. One other question we have here is, has the district considered installing more outdoor tables at the high school for students to eat lunch?
We have. And we're looking at getting some more outdoor tables, especially outside the cafeteria area. Probably using that awning area as the first safe area in the sense of if it rains, you can still be dry.
One other, if 5 days is approved, how does transportation work on such short notice?
The transportation department has been hard at work and has actually designed all the routes already if approved. So they're ready to go with the new routes and they will send that information out the Thursday before we start on that Monday.
And then is there an option for students to remain hybrid if the district returns to 4 to 5 days per week?
This is one of the great questions that was asked at the board meeting. We've been looking at the possibility of a hybrid option. Right now, the feedback I am receiving from the faculty PAEA is that they are not in favor of also having the hybrid option. So we're looking at that at this particular moment, but that's the direction it's moving, especially at all levels. But the question was specifically for the elementary levels. What we will always encourage folks to do is please call your building principal and have conversations.
Dr. Kilmetz, I think you had some additional information about why we felt that that was, or why the teachers were feeling that wasn't a good option.
You know, one of the reasons why we feel so strongly about having students in for 5 days is that consistency. You know, the majority of our faculty, staff, and administration truly believe that a consistent environment helps to maintain a lot of structure for students, which is definitely needed in this time. It also makes planning for all your students, whether they're virtual or in person, a little bit easier on the teacher. We talked a bit earlier about the challenges with preparing lessons that are delivered to both at-home learners and in-person learners at the same time. And if you are unsure exactly who's going to be in your classroom on what day, or if that changes frequently, it's very hard to plan for those meaningful educational experiences, such as small group learning or tiered activities or collaborative work that occurs on a regular daily basis. So for that reason and many others, we are recommending the consistency with either 5 days of in-person learning or 5 days of at-home learning.
Another question, if we do move to, so if board approves admin recommendations, if a student decides to return for the fourth quarter to in-person, but then wants to go virtual, can they do that?
Yes, we will allow them to go virtual. Again, that would be a conversation we request that you have with the building principal.
Another question that I can certainly answer quickly, just to confirm if the board approves the 5-day option, there will be another final selection. So board meetings Monday night, depending on how that vote plays out, Tuesday morning, first thing, you are going to get an official survey, I shouldn't even say survey, selection notification to determine what your student will be doing for the fourth quarter.
Yes.
And then some good questions about lunch. So individuals' understanding is that breakfast and lunch are still available at no charge. That is correct. Still available. Actually just got extended to September 30th. Then the follow-up question is, can they still bring their own lunch?
Absolutely. Absolutely, they may.
If an in-person child is sick and has to stay home but feels well enough to attend class, would they be able to do so virtually?
This is one of those wonderful questions we've been debating. So for this year, yes, we're going to allow that to continue for this year if they're feeling sick and stay home. We are looking at how that will play out next year when we get to our next year discussions.
I apologize. So there's a question about recess. I get it. When kids are out at recess, do they get to run around and play tag on the playground?
Everything needs to be a building decision based on the amount of space that we have. But yes, we want the children to get out there, move their legs, exercise, get off that energy. So that is the goal that is going to be, is getting the kids out there, moving around and having a great time being a kid.
And we've seen some really awesome socially distanced outdoor activities on the playground. So that's wonderful to see. And yes, we encourage that.
Yes.
Back to the 5 days and hybrid topic. If 5 days in person is selected, can we create our own hybrid schedule, i.e. keep them home for a few days?
No, we're asking you not to do that. We're asking if you select in person, that you be in person and that you follow through on being in person. Why don't we go and finish off some of the rest of this and then we'll get back? Or is there more questions that are relevant, Ms. Emanuel?
I'm still reading through them all. Some of them are a little bit longer. So why don't you keep going and then I'll pop back in once I figure out what's going on.
So some of the questions we received are, what is happening with end of year activities? Those are being scheduled outdoors. And by being able to schedule them outdoors, we are hopeful that we'll be able to have parents present for these activities, the teddy bear picnic, the 5th grade moving up ceremonies, concerts, musicals. In fact, we have already rented the Kimberton Amphitheater for some of the musicals and the concerts that are taking place. The 8th grade promotion ceremony will be held outdoors on the field behind Washington Field, and the high school baccalaureate and graduation will be held outdoors as always. And we're looking at rain dates because we don't have many other choices beyond the rain date right now. We'll never get all the students, let alone anybody, to be with them indoors. So we are
Dr. Fagley,
outdoors.
just a reminder, we will be live streaming all of these events as well on Phantom TV. And then you can watch them live on Phantom TV as well as through the live stream feature on our website. So we're trying to make sure that everybody gets a chance to be part of these important transitions, celebrations.
Yes. Okay. Next slide, Ms. Claus. So food, yes, we're still handing out food. We're now handing out Tuesdays from 4:30 to 5:30 at the high school. That's right across from the football stadium. We do ask if you can to please register, but it's not required. And then on Wednesdays from 11 to 12:30, we're distributing food at Manavon, Barclay, and the Phoenix PAX. Summer of 2021. It is going to be a busy summer of 2021. Our summer programs have expanded significantly this year. This is to help us with some students who need some additional makeup to keep caught up. It's also to allow students who have done very, very well to keep advancing. So at the elementary, we'll have literacy, math, English language development classes, and extended school year. Middle school, we're going to be running the reading and math and those other classes. And at the high school, we will be running the bridge and credit recovery programs, as well as other classes. We have lots of camps that are scheduled to run. We encourage you to go to the website for Phoenixville Summer and sign up for some of the camps. We're looking at our sports camps being primarily outdoors this summer, while the academic camps will be run indoors, but they're going to be following all the safety guidelines, and we'll be keeping everyone at that point at the 6-foot distancing during our camps. And what are we planning to do for the 2021-2022 school year? We are looking at two models. We're looking at a full in-person instruction 5 days a week for all students who wish to be in person. We're also looking at a full virtual instruction option for all grades in the Phoenixville Area School District K to 12. So if you wish to remain virtual next year, we are looking at having those options for you at the elementary level and all classes and subjects, in the middle and all classes with the subjects, at the high school with all the core classes and subjects and many of the electives. We'll never get to all the electives, but we'll have many of the electives online virtual so that students can be in that full virtual mode. So we are looking at all those and we'll start to push out more information about these in the May timeframe.
So Dr. Fagley, do you anticipate that teachers will be teaching both in person and virtual?
Great question. We anticipate at the elementary level that there will be designated virtual teachers teaching only virtual and designated teachers teaching in person. We're not looking at doing the hybrid model next year as we know it. Now, we are also aware that there may be some students who are required by us to quarantine. Those few students would be allowed to Zoom into the class and watch their class or listen to their class that day. This is our current thinking, but we are not setting up Zoom sessions for everybody. So if you're sick next year, you're sick, you need to stay home. But if you've been required to quarantine, we're looking at that as a possibility for the in-person instruction. For the full virtual, again, elementary, we're looking at full virtual teachers. At the middle school and the high school, there will never be enough students because of the subject specificity, we believe, to keep one teacher fully engaged virtually. So what they would be doing is they would have one class that is a full virtual class and maybe 5 classes that are in-person class, but they would not be mixing the two. It'd be a class or 2 of virtual students and 2 or 3 classes of in-person students. Is that anything else to add to that?
So actually, real quick question relating to that virtual versus in person. One of the questions here is, would teachers next year be teachers from the background of charter schools?
No, they're going to be our teachers. They're going to be our teachers who have been teaching this year, most likely.
All right, so we'll start cruising through some of the other questions. Another recess question, is this a time when students will have mask breaks?
That is the anticipation, yes, that there will be ability to have mass breaks during recess.
And just to clarify for next year, students who are sick, will they be marked absent as in the traditional sense and not have the option to Zoom for the day? So yeah, this one was answered a little while ago, but as long as they're feeling well enough, they can certainly participate virtually. And we do encourage this because we would, I mean, obviously we want to sick people
Well,
safely, please.
participate virtually if they've been required to quarantine. If they're sick, they would be, I believe where we're going right now, Ms. Manuel, is they would be marked absent because they would not be.
Here or for this fourth quarter?
Oh, this is fourth quarter. I apologize. I
Yeah,
thought
no worries. No, well, I'm not talking about next year. Sorry, for the fourth
They're
quarter.
different.
My bad. No, yes.
Yes, so what I said stands for fourth quarter. We're not talking about next year. Yeah,
I misheard that. I apologize.
all good. I don't think I clarified it. So one question that, well, I should say one topic that keeps coming up is the challenge of 3 to 6 feet. So again, this is going on the premise that the administrative recommendations are approved, but how to know when your student is going to be a 6-foot student or a 5-foot or a 4-foot or a 3-foot student. There were several questions relating to that. Can you speak to parents are essentially asking, how do they know which applies to their kid?
Sure. In general, so and I'm going to talk about this very broadly, and Dr. Kilmetz and Dr. Whitehead, please jump in. At the elementary level, the numbers we're seeing seem to be indicating that most students will be at the 4 to 6 feet, 6 foot, but no less than 4 feet right now. And that's just based off the numbers we're seeing who want to come in for in-person instruction. There will be some classrooms that will be at 6 foot, and there'll be other classrooms that we believe right now at 4 foot. In the middle school, from what we are finding, I believe, Dr. Whitehead, I'm correct in saying that 6th and 7th grade will probably be at the 4 to 5 foot distancing, most likely in many of their classes, some 6 foot. 8th grade through 12th grade will most likely be, given the numbers of students we see coming in, will be at the 6 foot distancing.
In most cases.
In most cases, yes.
Yeah,
Always have to say in most cases, because there always can be exceptions. There will be exceptions.
So we have 2 questions about childcare.
Ms. Emanuel, I have one more question to follow up with the 6 foot, because I know we had a question that came in prior to the meeting that asked about about why there's 6 foot distancing between students and teachers, and between 6 foot distancing required between all adults, but not required between students. Dr. Fagley, can you respond to that?
I really need to get to Ms. Franklin at the Chester County Health Department to do a better answer on this, but I will try to remember her answer and the guidance. It is because there is less transmission that apparently is taking place between students. The greater risk are with the adults, the big folk. Exact reasons, I am not sure. But yes, the reasoning is from the guidance from the health department that students are okay at down to 3 foot. You don't want to go below that. You prefer to be at 6 foot, but as adults, we need to be at the 6 foot distancing, mainly due to the transmissibility that's taking place between adults.
That's correct. And I would just add to that, with some of the questions, you also have to consider the 15 cumulative minute rule still is in play as well. So even within that we're making obviously there's a big focus on the 3 to 6 range, but it's also the timing that occurs within that context.
Right.
So a couple questions about childcare. One is we'll start with this year. For the 4th quarter, is there before and after care at the elementary level?
Right now, I do not see that we're going to be able to have the before and after care. It's something we're going to continue to look at, though, and see if we can't get it to happen in
That's
the
what, you know,
in the
we want
building.
to work toward, for sure.
And for next year?
That is something we're absolutely looking to have occur next year. Yes.
Another great question about PSSAs. Could anybody, there's a nice long list, somebody speak to what's going on with our standardized testing?
Dr. Whitehead.
Sure, I'll start, and then Dr. Cummins can certainly add to it. We just recently participated in a survey of all the Chester County school districts, and the vast majority, almost all of them, are actually looking at the end of May, early June, to administer PSSAs and some of the Keystone assessments. This is not an ideal, obviously, situation. It's not one that we relish, but we are looking at the positives of it, and looking at having an assessment such as this does help us in terms of looking at the big picture of the academic progress of our students. How we're going to operationalize that, and we'll be working and collaborating with other school districts, but that is, right now we are not off the hook with giving them from the PDE. PDE has communicated with the United States Department of Education. USDA gave us flexibility to give it over the summer or give it in the fall. And quite frankly, with summertime, families want to spend some summertime together, obviously. And so we're also concerned with there's no instruction going on in the summertime, or except for our summer programming. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of instruction going on, but not for 100% of our students. And lastly, with the fall, who wants to be welcoming back to school in whatever instructional format we are in? If it's the recommended one, and welcome back, here's your test, is not a great way to start the year. So we believe, as other school districts, that May timeframe, June timeframe would be good to get us to administer the assessments, but we're still working through the logistics.
And Dr. Figley, could you speak to our the most recent numbers you have regarding percentages of staff that are vaccinated?
Sure. We are in the vaccination process. I know that the J&J vaccine administration to all school personnel began today, and it will continue through next Saturday. Approximately 5,400 personnel will be vaccinated over this period of time. What we are looking at right now is that by the end of next week, we believe over 57% of our entire staff will be vaccinated. And we also believe that at the K to 5, K to 6 level, it will be somewhere in the area of 65 to 70% vaccinated. And when I'm saying vaccinated, receiving the first dose. Some fully vaccinated, others just on the first dose.
But the J&J vaccine is just one dose, correct?
That is correct. J&J is one dose. So all 223 of our folks, that's how many they gave us, those folks will be completed their full course of medication. We also had somewhere in the area of, I believe it was 150 or so that had already received their vaccine. So we're well on our way to having our staff fully vaccinated. And hopefully we will by the first or second week of April, because that's when round 2 of the vaccine for J&J is scheduled to arrive in Pennsylvania.
Follow-up standardized assessment test. How is that going to work for virtual students?
That's a
Great question. We don't necessarily have that answer.
We're waiting to hear from PDE how they expect us to do that. We don't know the answer to that. Great question.
For ESY, this individual is asking if there's been a decision regarding in-person versus virtual.
Dr. Kilmetz?
In most cases, for extended school year in particular, we are teaching in person. We're only offering virtual options for summer when we are able. So, for example, we're definitely able to offer stepping up virtually. And so if you're invited to that program and you fill out the registration form, you'll see that option. In some cases, especially for extended school year, we're not able to offer that option due to the program requirements and what's necessary for instruction for those particular students. But if you have any questions, always please see your case manager or see Mr. Ramsey in specialized programs and services, or Ms. Pettin or Ms. Diachenko.
Question about students traveling outside of the state for spring break. Are they expected to or allowed to quarantine?
Yeah, that is the
So,
new guidelines.
no, go ahead, Dr. Whitehead.
Yeah, at this juncture, no, the quarantining and isolation prior to out-of-state or after out-of-state travel is no longer required.
We are looking at the possibility of providing antigen testing for students. When they return from spring break, we're still in the process of working out the logistics to see if it's possible for us to do for any student who wishes it.
This is a very interesting question for next year. Parent wondering if we're going to continue block scheduling for specials at the elementary level.
We're having those discussions. We'd love your feedback. Please let us know your thoughts.
Yeah.
And then actually, so this is a very targeted question, but I think we can make it much more broad. Could you please speak to, historically, obviously, we would have lots of parent volunteers and community volunteers coming in and out of the buildings. Obviously, this has been put on hold. Could you please speak to, this person asks about the fourth quarter, but fourth quarter and then current thoughts about next year, please.
Certainly. I'm not really sure where next year is going to leave, so I want to be honest about that. We would love to get our volunteers back in. One of the pieces we have been talking about administratively is seeing if parents would be willing to volunteer to help us with outdoor recess. So we are looking at that possibility of outdoor recess for parent volunteers. We're hopefully we'll soon be finished with that discussion and let the board know what we would like to do on Monday. Any other questions?
Yes, apologies. I was just typing an answer.
Sorry.
No, that was my fault. Fourth marking period.
Mm-hmm.
What time will all schools dismiss? Will it be staggered? And what about lunch?
So fourth marking period will be back to what I'll call the typical bell schedule. So high school, middle school will go at the 2:50, 3 o'clock time, and the elementary schools will go at the 3:30, 3:45, 50 time.
There's a question regarding adolescents being vaccinated. So it sounds like this individual wants to keep their child home until they can be vaccinated. So can they be virtual, but once they're vaccinated, go back to in person?
That would certainly be a question for next year, because what I'm understanding is adolescents are not going to be vaccinated until maybe sometime next fall, is what I'm hearing is the current guidance or predictions. I shouldn't say guidance, it's a prediction. I'm certain that at that point, it would be a conversation with the principal and the student would be coming back in.
This one we did kind of answer, but talking about mask breaks at recess, coming back to that one, if students are running around not wearing a mask, how will they remain 6 feet apart? So could you describe what recess would look like if there were a mask break included in it?
Dr.
There's not.
It's a tough one, because it will be working with the students to keep them at 6 feet apart as they run around.
And our primary, our paramount goal obviously is following the health and safety protocol. So it's not always that there's going to be mask breaks during recess in particular. That's really a building specific plan. So at some buildings that might be the case, or it might be the case some days, but at other buildings there is a different plan in place. So if you have specific questions about mask breaks for your student, please reach out to your school's principal about that specific plan, as it really is very building dependent.
Dr. Kilmes, while you're talking, there have been a couple of questions about are we concerned about delay, or that there's been that our students are going to be behind because of this school year. Can you talk to that?
Sure, that's a very great question. And it's certainly one that a lot of educators and a lot of parents and a lot of students are asking the last few months. It's difficult to know what the impact on one particular student is. We can't really answer to your specific student unless you give us a call, and then we're happy to share your child's data and what we're seeing for your child with you. But what we can say overall, the trends that we see here at Phoenixville are a little bit different than what we see nationwide. So similar to what we see nationwide, we do know that our Phoenixville students are largely on track in terms of their literacy performance and their mastery of literacy-based objectives. And that's really great news. And it's really thanks to our teachers and to parents who are working so diligently with their children at home. And we've worked hard to make that curriculum very cyclical. So often those skills are repeated throughout grade levels, and that helps our students build mastery over time. And that's why we're seeing strong performance in those particular areas. Again, that's an overall trend. Doesn't mean it's that way for every individual child, but it is a trend we're seeing in Phoenixville. With math, we're seeing some variation. In some cases, looking at our middle school math data right now, it's pretty much on par with what we've seen, for example, in years past. But that isn't necessarily the case for every grade level. And so we see some fluctuations and some deficits in math. And we certainly know that math, the topics build on one another over the course of years. And so we're really working very hard to remediate, to provide interventions for students when necessary, to provide that support, whether that's in a support period at the secondary level, or whether it's over our summer program, after school tutoring, or a combination thereof. We're really looking to support any students who are struggling with any subject area. Overall, our students are doing really well, but we certainly know that that's not the case for everybody. And we're working hard to support every individual student.
Couple of questions. We have, what does social distancing on the school buses look like, and how is this enforced?
Sure. On the school buses, we'll be doing the same thing we've been doing since the beginning of the year. It will be 2 per seat. Windows down partially so that there's airflow going, and the emergency hatch at the top of the roof open so there's a constant airflow up. That has been the way we've been able to keep folks safe so far on the bus, and we're going to continue doing that process.
For fourth quarter, if we go 5 days, what time will elementary dismiss on early dismissal Wednesdays? What about the secondary dismissal time?
Okay, so the way Wednesdays are being planned, making me go back and really think. On the early dismissal Wednesdays, the recommendation to the board is that we be virtual on those days. So it would be an all virtual day. Then it would be a 1:30 dismissal, if I remember the time correctly, from the virtual class. There is also a recommendation, if the board approves, to go back in on the 22nd, that on Friday, March 19th, we have a half day of school. The half day of school, I will need to get the exact times out, but it will be something in the area of 11:30 for the middle school, high school, and 12:30 for the elementary school's dismissal. They will be provided a bag lunch to take home that day. We're not going to serve lunch in the cafeterias.
All right, I think we are down to our 5-minute mark. So what we typically try and do is to give each of our panelists an opportunity to for any last thoughts. So Dr. Whitehead, I'll start with you this time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So as always, we want to thank the community and parents for their continued support. As Dr. Figley said in the beginning, it has been quite a roller coaster ride. I'll always remember this. Tomorrow's my birthday, so I always know this time of year what a year it's been. But as we move forward, I think we have some very good planning ahead, and we were very fortunate when this all began. The district really was looking at a lot of virtual platforms. We were fortunate to have Canvas in place, and so I think as we move ahead, there's optimism. I'm optimistic. And I think we've learned a lot. We've learned a great deal over this past year. And I think we're going to use a lot of those positive things that we've learned. There's been a lot of not positive things, obviously, but I think we're going to be able to take some of those positive things and use them as we move forward. So again, thank everyone for their continued support.
Thank you, Dr. Whitehead. Dr. Kilmetz?
We know how hard things still are, and we're working together. We're working with you. So when you have questions, comments, concerns, please let us know. Feedback for us. We're anxious to hear from everybody and make sure we're doing our best to support all children. So thank you so much for your support.
Ms. Emanuel?
Just want to second and third what's already been said and add, my appreciation as well, and remind folks that, when there is a challenge that your child is facing, to definitely reach out to their team, reach out to their teachers, reach out to their principals. If they receive special education services, case managers, their supervisors, just reach out to them, the folks that know your child and really can work with you specifically on your child's needs. But just don't hesitate to reach out, because we have so many incredibly talented folks who are just so dedicated to our students and will absolutely do whatever they can to help. So thank you.
And Dr. Fagley?
Thank you, Mrs. Claus. I'm going to end where I guess I began with thank you. It's been one heck of a year. The ups and downs have been incredible. The highs, when it's going really, really well, have been so much fun. And the challenges have been just that, challenges that we have to learn how to grow from. And Phoenixville has really done a great job of facing the challenges and coming forth. Thank you to the students. Boys and girls, this is not what you signed up for at all. And we know it. We want to have you back in the building safely. We care about you, and we understand that it's working well for some of you, and that's wonderful, but others are having great challenges, and we really want to see you back in the building so we can all work together to help you. Parents, thank you. Wow. I have 2 daughters with kids. I know what you're going through to some extent, because I'm not living it myself, but I'm living it through my children as I'm living it through all of you. And it has been an incredible amount of work we've asked you to do. And we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all you're doing. Faculty and staff, you have stepped up in ways that none of us could have imagined. You have met the challenges. You have learned so much. We have all learned so much this year. And as Dr. Whitehead said earlier, we will use what we have learned and grow from what we have learned. And we're going to be better for it. But thank you for all your hard work. Thank you for your care. Thank you for making the students feel like they have a home in a classroom. And I think that's one of the key reasons why we wanted to make sure all students remained with their teachers this year. To the board, thank you. You have one of those thankless jobs that you're being asked to make medical decisions and try to make medical determinations when what you signed up was to try to help run a school district, and you've done a great job on both ends. But thank you for your work. Folks who are listening, we know we're not going to make everybody happy with our decisions, and we're sorry for that, but we recognize that. But please know that the board members have your children's best interests at heart. All the administration does, all the faculty, all the staff. So we're all there working, pulling together to try to make the best decision we can. And we're all doing the very best we know how. But thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining us. I'm sure I'll see many of you. Well, not see you, but you'll be on Zoom with us on Monday night. Please make sure you come and join the meeting on Monday night to find out how the end vote goes. I can let you know that we've looked at the agenda, and this will be the first major item on the agenda after we get through the opening exercises. So please come in, tune in. And if then you really have good resilience, please stay until the end of the meeting when we're going to be doing a budget meeting, and you get to learn about the budget for next year. So thank you very much for all you're doing. Thanks for a great evening. I wish you all the best.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
All right. Night.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Mrs. Claus.
Thank you.